Welcome to San Mateo County Today. Conversations with government leaders throughout San Mateo County. Here's your host, Marshall Wilson.
If you've ever driven up Highway 101, you've seen off to your left the City of Stars. That's right, Brisbane. We have the Mayor of the City of Stars, Lori Liu, with us on San Mateo County Today, who hopefully will tell us where it got its nickname and also about the importance of civic engagement in her community. Thanks for joining us. We'll be right back. Welcome to San Mateo County Today. I'm your host, Marshall Wilson. I'm here with the Mayor of Brisbane, Lori Liu. Lori, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
One of the nicknames of Brisbane is the City of Stars.
That's right.
I've always wondered, where does that come from? And as mayor, I'm hoping you know.
That's a very good question. So back in the 1940s, there was a Brisbane resident who came up with this idea after World War II to sort of put a light on the mountain and brighten people's lives again. So he came up with the idea to start building stars and giving them out to residents. And the tradition has just continued to this day. And so if anybody moves to town, they quickly find out where they can pick up their star. It's really a collaborative process. There's a person who builds them by hand with wood, with donated lumber from the local lumberyard. And then the residents can choose which size they want, put their own lights on it, and put it up. And when you look at it collectively up on the mountain, it's just this twinkling effect. You can even see it all the way from the 101. So it's really a beautiful tradition. And so that's why we're called the City of Stars.
That answers a question for me that I have long had. And I've often driven by Brisbane or through it and seen all the stars. So someone actually makes those. That's pretty interesting. Mm-hmm. So now on to something a little more serious. So you're mayor a few months into your first term as mayor. What is the difference between being a council member and being the mayor? And what are your priorities as mayor for the rest of the year?
Sure. So, that's a great question because people don't really know what council members are unless you're involved in local government, but everyone knows, what a mayor is.
If I have a complaint, I want to go see the mayor.
That's right. But, in reality, in our city, the mayor has, the same vote as any of the other four council members. The main difference is that as mayor, you get to lead the meetings, set the agenda, have a little more say of what goes on during that term, and you get to really be the spokesperson for the city. So you attend events outside of the city, you give press releases, you give interviews to reporters on major topics, and you get to interact with the public, as a spokesperson. For example, the other day, as mayor, I got to issue a proclamation to a local mail carrier who was retiring after serving the post office for 32 years. And just by presenting her with the proclamation on behalf of the city, it was really touching for her. So it's that interface between the city and the residents and, the local business population as well.
And what are your priorities as mayor? Also, you get to help set the agenda of the city because you're in that role somewhat.
Sure.
So what are your priorities?
So my priorities, we have right now the biggest project in our city's history, the Baylands project. So my priorities are overseeing that process. Right now we're going through the environmental review and we're going topic by topic, and over the summer we'll be getting into our deliberations. So as mayor, it's very interesting because I've, as a council member, had the opportunity to give my input. And as mayor, it's more about listening and leading the meetings and finding where there can be consensus and compromise and trying to move things along. My priorities right now are based on the projects that we're handling. So as I mentioned, the Baylands is number one, and we just had a meeting last night. It was a regular council meeting, but we set the agenda for the Baylands schedule, and we're going to be wrapping up a few more meetings on the substantive EIR, Environmental Impact Report topics. We have land use remaining, which is a big one, and then we'll be getting into the meat of it, which is the deliberations. Where we will look at the applicant's specific plan application, and the major issue will be the housing component, which is not a currently permitted use for that property. My other priorities are, I'm very excited about our new library. That's a project that's near and dear to my heart as I have young children, and we have a public arts component to it, which I serve on the subcommittee for. So the other night, we got to select a finalist out of 25 applicants to have a public arts piece in the library, and that came about from a public arts ordinance, which is a funding mechanism based on whenever there's a development of a certain size that allows a certain segment of the proceeds or of the budget to go towards a public art installation. And then we also have a specific plan, our city's first specific plan that we're working on for the entrance to our town. That's called the Parkside at Brisbane Village. And this is really exciting because what a specific plan does is it allows the city to, and the residents, the community, to really take control over what the development will look like. And it makes it also easier from the developer's point of view because then they have an expectation of what would be acceptable in terms of density, design, architecture, et cetera. And it'll allow our city and our residents to have a development which reflects our small town character. Because development has been a big issue in our city, but as in many cities, but particularly in our city because of our small size. We're very conscious of making sure that any development is in line with our small town character.
And how much of these projects, is there a housing component to these projects?
Yes, so the Parkside Village, Parkside specific plan, the way that came about was in response to our housing element obligations. So as you know, every city is required to zone for a certain amount of housing. And so out of that process, we decided we were going to do a specific plan, and we zoned for 228 units of housing. And it's going to be along our Park Lane corridor, and also then there's going to be some mixed use at the entrance to our town, which is really exciting because we are right on Bayshore Boulevard, which gets something like 80,000 vehicles passing up and down every day. And we want to be able to capture some of those drivers and get them to stop in, have a bite to eat, do a little bit of shopping, and maybe discover Brisbane.
And you had mentioned you have 2 young children. How does that shape your view of your policies and help shape your priorities? Because I would imagine that's a different perspective than, say, someone who's retired and wants to give back to their community. I mean, you're right sort of there in the wheelhouse of like city services.
That's right. So my children are pretty young. When I ran for office, they were only 2 and 4. And it was amazing because they came with me on the campaign trail and they were just starting to understand, how the world works. And my 2-year-old, one of the first things he said was City Hall. So they were really involved from the beginning. And at that time, we were building a new playground. So before I got elected, I was giving input into where should we build the swings, and should we have a fountain, and should there be sand, and for my children to be able to see that process and know that we made a difference was really important to me. I've also been very connected to the local mothers group in Brisbane. It's called the Mothers of Brisbane, the Mob, and it's a very active group, and they helped fundraise for the new playground. And as well, they helped fundraise for the new skate park. So because I have young children, I'm very connected to that community. I want to make sure that we have the recreational facilities and the education that our children deserve.
And I understand another of your priorities is women in politics, is involving women in politics. How did you get involved in politics, and why do you think it's so important for women to get involved?
Sure. So, I never thought of myself as someone who would have gotten involved in politics. It was more for me about being active in the community and making a difference. And I would say it started back when I was in college. I participated, I was at Tufts University near Boston, and I participated in this group called Somerville Conversations. I was one of the only college students in this organization, and I just felt this connection to the local community, even though I was a college student, just there temporarily. And I felt like it was really important to be active locally. And so then back in 2008, fast forward several years, I went through this program called Emerge California, which trains Democratic women to run for office. And I still didn't think that I was going to do it in the near future, but I was active locally. I was on our Open Space Ecology Committee. I was on the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. I had worked on some ballot measures. I realized that in a small community like Brisbane, you could make a difference. And through Emerge, I've appreciated the support of other women who have helped, lead the way. And, we're fortunate to have a female majority council. We have 3 women on our council right now. And I think that does lend, a certain level of support and dialogue. And, given the recent presidential election results, I feel even more strongly that it's important to support women and in politics and to show young girls that anything is possible.
And are you involved outside of Brisbane as well in any regional boards or commissions?
I am. So I'm happy to serve on the Peninsula Clean Energy Board, which is the Community Choice Aggregation program. And that's really exciting because it's sort of a new startup where we get to bring renewable energy to the county and allow residents to have lower electricity bills. And through my work on that board, our city has signed on to be an Eco 100 customer, and I myself have as well. And so I'm trying to really promote more environmental responsibility.
And I'm sorry, but what is Eco 100?
Eco 100, so that is, now that it's April, we're fully rolled out. So every resident and business in the county should be online and opted into the program. So Eco 100 is the offering that allows a customer, an electricity customer, to get 100% renewable energy. And all you have to do is go on the website, peninsulacleanenergy.com, and opt up to Eco 100. And it costs a very marginal amount per month, but you know that you personally are helping support the environment and lower our carbon emissions. And the other thing I do regionally is I'm on the Peninsula Library Board. And that's really exciting because we do have a library project in Brisbane. So it's really great to work with the county library staff. And we also just rolled out a new marketing and branding campaign. And it's fascinating to see the different ways that people are interacting with libraries now. It's not just a place to go take out books. It's a place where you build community, where you check out e-readers, where you can work on projects, where you can have maker spaces. Right. So that's been really exciting as well.
All right. You bring a lot to the city of Brisbane and a lot to the community. Thank you for joining us in San Mateo County today. And thank you for joining us in San Mateo County today. We'll see you again.
Thank you.